Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely, and with me today, of course, is Peter Lavelle, co-founder of the Gaggle and also host of RT's talk show Crosstalk. The other day, there was an interesting article published on Substack by Mickey Kaus. Those who may not be familiar with Mickey Kaus, he's a long-standing journalist. He used to work at the New Republic and has worked at a number of magazines over the years. Always a very interesting writer, always has an unusual take on things. The thrust of the article was the subject of the strange relationship between Donald Trump and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, because Kushner, as everybody knows, has had an enormous influence on one policy after another, whether it's the policy of immigration, whether it's trade, or penal reform, election strategy. Wherever you look, Jared Kushner is there. Conventional wisdom had it that, well, what's the origin of Kushner's power over Trump? Well, he's married to his daughter, and obviously, he's a doting father, and as most doting fathers, they want to do favors for their daughters, and therefore is a little different. He thinks that there is something much more self-interested involved, and that is Kushner family money, and that there's that pile of cash that the Kushner family sits on is something that Trump will need to have at his disposal because, as Kaus points out, the Trump brand has taken a terrible hit over the years. It doesn't have the allure that it has had for decades. The Apprentice show gig, that's not coming back. And the hotel and retail business, which is basically Trump's primary business, has taken a terrible hit as a result of the COVID pandemic. And that therefore Trump will definitely be looking for the Kushners to help him out in the coming years. I find that theory very plausible, a lot more plausible than just the doting father doing favors for his adorable daughter. What's your take, Peter?
Well, I absolutely agree. It's a very compelling argument because Jared Kushner gave probably outperformed any other person in the Trump orbit by when giving bad advice to the president of the United States, his father-in-law, because just about everything Jared touched failed, and badly, and most importantly was overseeing the campaign. I mean, that's his crowning effort here. You're absolutely right. I mean, the Trump has a lot of even before president, but a lot of legal and financial problems, and you have to go through the courts, and all this is very, very complicated. It takes years and years to go through. But you're right. Kushner's family is very well to do, and Ivanka herself is very, very wealthy as a result of her father and her husband. But what I found compelling is that the Kushner clan they have credit line access that Trump may not have. Okay, and that's basically in the Middle East. Okay, and there've been discussions about this in the media of Jared Kushner's connections with a lot of financial institutions and royal families in the Middle East. And so it's not impossible that this is the credit line that Trump is going to be counting on to rehabilitate his brand, save his businesses, because as you point out, with the pandemic and subsequent economic turndown, everything he's essentially invested in properties and businesses are highly affected by this health crisis here. As it is an American tradition. You usually don't talk about your wealth, at least not in details. Okay. And so we really don't know what Trump's real financial health is, but it could be very, very weak. Okay. It could be very, very his it's a common knowledge. I don't know if it's correct, but he has difficulty raising money because, well, he's bankrupted many, many times. Okay. So, but the fact that this is the reason why Jared Kushner could hang on like he did. I mean that this what's closer to you and I is the deal of the century, which wasn't at all okay. I mean, it was basically a sham the way I look at it. And part of the peace agreements in the Middle East, as they call them, who knows? Behind closed doors, were there a lot of give and takes financially? I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back. I'm not making any claim here at all. I have no evidence, but I wouldn't be surprised if that is part of the deal. Okay, and it would benefit them personally. And so, and we probably would never find out about that. But the article makes a compelling case. Here's a person that was on the wrong side of just about every single policy. And apparently he was able to get people fired left, right, and center. I mean, Scaramucci was his idea. Okay. Scaramucci lasted 11 days. He got rid of Chris Christie because Christie prosecuted his father, Jared Kushner's father.
Right.
So
yeah,
he had sway. And I think with the exception of Trump's wife, I think Jared Kushner is the only senior advisor to make it all the way through.
That's exactly right. As you say, just about everything that Kushner touched turned out to be a dud. I mean, and then the completely bungled firing of James Comey, which is investigation. He pushed out Steve political strategist. He was out. Everything Trump hung on. How did Kushner hang on? Because he's the son-in-law. But I don't get the impression Trump is such a sentimentalist. I mean, he's a very shrewd businessman. He's nobody's fool. And if he sees somebody is incompetent, he gets rid of them. I mean, that's just, he's not one who gets these romantic ideas. So I find the idea that there's a self-interest element involved compelling, because it may well be that Trump realized early on that his brand name, and the brand is his core business, is that name. He sells it. There are all these buildings around the world called Trump Plaza, Trump Tower, the Trump Building. He has nothing to do with that. He just sells the name. And now suddenly that's gone. I mean, his name. These people, the deplorables, adore him, but the deplorables don't have money. The people who have money may well just keep their distance from Trump. They may not think that's such a great idea to call your building the Trump Arcade. So I think that's compelling. Those reality TV shows are not coming back. So if you're going to be a populist leader, your followers, none of them has any money. So that's why I find that, it may well be he's thinking about his future, and the people who are going to actually bankroll him, particularly if he's planning a political movement, which is how he's going to re-emerge for 2024, and if he is serious about launching a new media enterprise, he's going to need a lot of money, which he, as you say, he doesn't have access to.
Well, the interesting thing too, I mean, since Jared is family, to what degree does Jared Kushner and his immediate family know of Trump's finances? I mean, this is something that's been talked about, gossiped about, misinformed about, but I think probably outside of Trump and his wife and his children, I mean, Jared probably knows pretty much Trump's balance. I mean, where he stands, and that's probably obviously closely held information. That's very powerful information to have knowledge of. And I suppose, and it makes perfect sense to me, that Jared would have a pretty good idea of Trump's balance sheet. And again, that would explain why he got a free ride all the way through the administration. I mean, from what I've been told, the West Wing of the White House, it's a small place, it's crowded, and Jared had the office right next door. The door was always open because he always saw what was going on here.
Right,
okay.
right.
So, I mean, it's really kind of interesting. So what were the interests of Jared Kushner during these last 4 years? That would be interesting to find out. I mean, from what I could tell on every single policy issue that I'm aware of that he was had access to, he always was like kind of a liberal Democrat in the middle of the West Wing of Trump's White House. I mean, and that's always been a mystery to me, and even more so, it's been very disturbing. Because we call it at the time, that's bad advice, okay? So this article kind of puts everything into perspective. I mean, you know, the great philosopher Bob Dylan once said, money doesn't talk, it screams.
Yes, that's it. And of course, it does explain other things, such as Trump's obsessive craving to do everything that Israel desires over and beyond what any previous president had wanted to do. I mean, all of the things, you know, we don't have to go through all of the, you know, the recognition of the settlement, the embassy to Jerusalem, with cutting off funds to the Palestinians. All of these things that which no other president, even George W. Bush, had attempted to do, he has done. And you think, well, you know, that's, you know, it has to be some maybe the national motive there, not just the Kushners, but you then have to wonder, is he expecting the Sheldon Adelson is going to help him out in the coming years? So you kind of wonder whether Trump was always thinking in terms of, well, what do I do now? You know, when I leave the White House, I'm still going to have to make a living because all the other sources will have dried up. And that's why you think, well, maybe these are going to be his bankrollers in the coming years.
Well, considering he's contesting the election and people in his orbit are doing pursuing this effort on his behalf, you know, in looking at his public appearances, I mean, he's definitely thinking of other things. He's got his mind on other things. I mean, you know, here's the media or the public has never had such access to a president as we have with Donald Trump. The juxtaposition, of course, we may never see Joe Biden ever. Okay, that'll be really interesting contrast here. And you could see since the election, Trump is his mind is elsewhere, and considering his age, he's thinking quick. Those synapses are working hard, and he's thinking about his next move. And whatever that next move is, you're going to need a lot of money.
You're going to need a lot of money, and and I think he is serious about running again in 2024. He knows he's going to have to build a movement. That costs money. That's big bucks. And he's going to need cash at hand right away. So, and if he is serious about challenging Fox News and therefore taking over, whether it's news or whether it's OAN, again, he's going to need cash. So, he's going to need a lot of money in the coming years. So, yeah, I mean, he's absolutely has to start thinking, who is going to help me out?
I would suggest to the president is that if you do get credit lines to start a new television cable network or news outlets, don't let Jared manage it, because he burned through $1 billion. Okay, $1 billion. I mean, one of the things, I mean, it says a lot about how idiosyncratic Trump is, but maybe just how politically stupid Jared is that they spent, I don't remember the sum, so I'm not going to mention it, but large sums of money on billboards for the Trump campaign in Washington, D.C., which votes 99.9% Democrat. I mean, What a waste of ads, okay? Or was it just for Trump to be able to go driving around, see all the posters? That's possible. That's possible. But if I were running the campaign finances, I'd say, no, we're not spending our money there, okay? So,
Right.
don't let Jared
Hey,
let Jared raise the money, but don't let him spend it, okay?
yeah, you kind of wonder also in the end what he really thinks of Jared. I mean, he must, Trump is a smart man. He must think this guy is my idiot son-in-law. It's like like every father-in-law's nightmare, which is, having a son-in-law says, "Can I have a job, please, Daddy?" I mean, and Trump must exactly think that. I mean, he's basically born into money. He's never really accomplished anything on his own. I mean, just lived off his father. And now, through a nice marriage, he's living off his father-in-law. I mean, Trump must know all of this. But he's kind of, essentially just stuck with him. But, you're absolutely right. Just keep him away from everything. All right. Well, we will, of course, maintain our laser-like focus on Trump and the election contest. But remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon.